Training to learn skills. A sparse feature in Yakuza 0 in the form of master abilities. Styles have 5 pink nodes for master abilities that are unlocked by completing the challenge or practice given by the style master. They may even have a story to tell. I'd call it more reasonable than our usual way of learning martial arts. Some of these abilities are style essentials, though some are too specific or restrictive to get much use out of, ending up forgotten. But the worst master ability has to be one you can't forget about. Well, I haven't been able to. It's over on Majima's side, in Thug Training. Komeki is the master that Majima kind of learns from. He refuses to be a student. Instead, Komeki will practice fight with Majima using the Komeki style arts: Warrior, Mind, Assassin, Vital, and Annihilation arts. Majima will develop his own line of Thug Cunning abilities. Thug Cunning, Evasion Strike, Enlightenment, Frantic Throw, Counterattack, and Harsh Lesson. Each battle with Komeki is a standard fight in Thug style. The fight will go on until Majima comes up with a new Thug style move. Then that move must be practiced a number of times before the fight can end. Majima does well thinking up his own abilities, for not only countering Komeki, but being useful for a thug in general. Though I did mention there was a bad one in here somewhere. This move will appear when Majima fights Komeki's vital arts. Komeki calls this the core of his martial art, even naming the Tiger Drop, the well-known devastating attack. Majima's ready for it, but he'll have to come up with a good answer for an opponent using Tiger Drop. That answer, and my subject is Thug Cunning Counterattack. Press the light or heavy buttons to transition into an attack as soon as you are hit by an enemy. This move embodies a fighter's pride. That is a bold statement I'll have to get back to. So what we have here is a responsive counterattack that requires heat mode. A heat mode that you really need to work on to keep up, considering that you lose heat when you're hit, and the move itself requires half a heat bar. And what was this training again? Countering the Tiger Drop? Majima says that after being hit by a Tiger Drop, that he uses Thug Cunning Counterattack to get momentum back. The attack that takes away a good chunk of heat, and you're not going to be standing after being hit by one. You want to give a better explanation on how this counters Tiger Drop, Majima? The practice is to hit Komeki with the move 5 times. And the options to do this are the light version that frequently misses, and the heavy version that is mostly blocked. Not the pair I would want to get the job done. This practice goes by the slowest, but Komeki goes easier of his own attacks. This type of counter was already introduced in this game. Introduced as the signature ability of Brawler style, Resolute Counter, with similar uses and mechanics between them. So I think it would be right to compare them, though the comparisons are in favor of Resolute. Resolute Counter's snappy attacks are much more useful than the sluggish swings of counterattack. Kiryu even recovers fast enough that he can attack the hit opponent after his counter. Add in that there's a grab variant, all with no heat cost. Resolute Counter really shows how much better it is. Resolute being a free reversal on an enemy makes it great. But back on track. We can go back to counterattack and see all the attacks it has to offer. Counterattack has 4 versions, the light and heavy, and then the reverse of both of those. Light, heavy, or backward, they all cost the same amount of heat. They also don't perform the way you would want them to. The light versions are the fastest, but they have too much recovery on them to have any follow-up attacks. And the heavy versions take longer to use, so they can be interrupted or just blocked entirely. But if the heavies do hit, they will make the enemy stagger. This counter was bad in practice, and it's bad in battle too. And even worse, since the input is just a simple button press that is the same as the attack buttons, it's incredibly easy to accidentally use. So not only does it not accomplish much, it's impossible to ignore, and leaves Majima vulnerable while sapping his heat away. And how does this help Thug? Thug's already about being evasive and outmaneuvering opponents. Being hit isn't a part of the plan. I should also bring up Bat Technique Counterattack. It's another damage counter with the same heat cost as Thug Cunning, although with its wider swing and faster attack, with more damage, it is much more worthwhile. So Thug Cunning Counterattack is nothing but a detriment. Too easy to use, bad at countering, and worst of all, it's not needed. Is this an attempt to make Thug play more like Brawler by giving it a poor Resolute counter? Because that would never work. The styles are too different from each other. It performs poorly in every way, yet it's also a master ability. Someone must have seen something in this counter in order to make it one of the Thug Cunning moves. But what I see is a poor counter with no use in thuggery. That's everything in counterattack covered, so why is this still going? As counterattack's greatest critic, I need to get footage of it performing poorly to get the point across. On one session though, I came in with another idea on how to use counterattack. Maybe even why it was thought so highly of when choosing master abilities. I tested it with this new way of thinking and things have changed. Thug Cunning Counterattack is an excellent upgrade and is a perfect complement to how Thug style plays. Now this is the biggest change of mind possible, so I better explain. The fast and evasive Thug style is best for one-on-one fights. So when Majima's busy, what are we going to do when an enemy comes up behind him to take advantage? Of course, we knock them away with our favorite move, Thug Cunning Counterattack. After applying this, everything about this attack makes much more sense. Of course it's not for slugging an enemy to turn the attack onto them. That's Resolute Counter. Counterattack is for swatting away enemies so that Majima can finish his rush combo uninterrupted. Even the heat cost makes sense. Since Majima will be hit during a combo, he'll have some heat stored up so he can use the counter. With new context on TCCA, I'm going to go over the variations again. I'll even go through my order of usefulness. First off is the backward light version. It has shaky accuracy, and it's overshadowed by another variant of counterattack. But its fast attack speed can allow Majima to stop an enemy's combo before they can knock him down. Next up is the heavy. It is the slowest and therefore the most interruptible, but its direct ability and its ability to stagger enemies for the longest gives it its use. The back heavy version. This is the variant that is a better back hit than the light version. It has a more sweeping attack and causes a slight stagger. This is the best counter for repelling an attacker. And finally, the best title goes to the light version. It's the fastest and the best way to get through Kameki's practice, though it's brought down by the range, stiffness, and a long recovery. That wasn't so bad. That's a good thing said for all of them. Though it's strange that the light version's on top, even though I said that the back heavy version was the best for attacking. And yeah, back heavy is the best attack for knocking away enemies, but light has a technique that's even more useful for our purposes. If you've played enough with counterattack unlocked, you've likely seen it before. A little flash of red, but no attack. And Majima can just walk away. Haven't found this talked about, and it doesn't look intentional, but it can be done consistently. All it takes is for Majima to be hit by an attack that causes a lot of stun. Most likely a hit from behind. Then input the light version before Majima is done recoiling. Then hold the direction opposite that Majima is facing. Then he's free to quick step, attack, anything. Full action ability. And as the counter never starts, no heat cost. This probably happens because the light version isn't directable, and with Majima flinching, delaying the counter, turning around is fast enough to take priority. This Thug Cunning counter cancel makes light the best when dealing with high amounts of stun. This is getting way too far. Now it's time for Thug Cunning counterattack in boss battles. These fights are usually a one-on-one with a strong enemy, and as stated, the attacks don't do very well, since they're usually blocked or evaded. But they can still stop a combo that doesn't send Majima flying. Using counter cancel is where the utility is. With all the heavy hits going around, there's plenty of canceling to do. With this, you can stop Majima from reeling, so you can get more attacks in, or save yourself from a series of attacks. And these qualities should not be understated. Getting tripped up by Sarah's sidestep kick? Just leave, the problem's solved. So, how is this shabby counterattack looking now? Well, it's time to wrap up. Whenever testing something out, you want to make a hypothesis of what you believe will happen and your reasoning why. That way, after the test, you can compare your initial thoughts with the results and see where you were right and where you went wrong. In this case, my hypothesis would be that Thug Cunning Counterattack is a terrible master ability because it's slow, clunky, and has no applications in Thug style. The result of playing with it, though, is that I really appreciate this move now. Yes, it's easy to accidentally use it, and it misses often. But if you're mindful and pay attention to the battle that's happening, you shouldn't misinput it all that often. And it shouldn't be blocked too much if it's used on unsuspecting assailants. So was my hypothesis wrong? Is Thug Cunning Counterattack not the worst master ability? Nah, I was right. but my reasons were wrong. At this point, I'm a big fan of counterattack as an ability. But it's not just an ability, it's a master ability. And the uniqueness of a master ability comes from it being taught to you. My complaints about counterattack were that it was clunky and that it was worse than Resolute Counter. What made me think that way? Well, it's that one-on-one training in the description. You can't learn how to use counterattack by fighting one enemy. So it felt incredibly awful to use. Komeki and Majima then talk about momentum, and everything about the description is very similar to Resolute Counter. Of course I'm not going to understand this move. All of this is the opposite of how you should use it. The training for Rush, Beast, Slugger, they all don't teach you how to use the moves. Well, at least they don't teach you wrong. Some changes would have to be made to understand counterattack from the beginning. Firstly, the description should say what this actually does, and not be so close to Resolute Counter. Counterattack needs to be as far away from Resolute Counter as possible. They are not the same. Komeki's practice would also have to change, but it would be so drastic that it would be different from all the others. It doesn't really make sense that Majima even learned this move from fighting Komeki. How about swapping in another move to be the master ability instead? And I have one. Reverse Shin Strike. It's a quick sneak attack on an enemy behind Majima that knocks them down. Sounds like a pretty good move to avoid being, say, Tiger Dropped. So I believe this would fit more in line with Komeki's training. Though I do see why counterattack was chosen to be a master ability in the first place. It covers one of Thug's weaknesses, which is why it's important for it to stand out. But with how things are, it wasn't presented properly. Of course, these proposed changes don't mean anything, unless there is a Zero Kiwami that bothers to change any of this. Despite its poor training and its flaws, I enjoyed having my opinion changed about counterattack as I used it. And it feels like I improved at Thug style as a result. Took a while to have an understanding of this move, but in the end, counterattack and I got there. So, I suppose there is some pride in this move after all.